Another story related to legal decisions and social issues, as MSNBC and NPR are reporting, the Supreme Court is now considering the legality of abortion clinic buffer zones. If you haven't heard about these buffer zones are, it's kind of, as the name says, it's an area around an abortion clinic beyond which protesters must stand. It's a common thing for Planned Parenthood clinics and other clinics, which, by the way, mostly aren't doing abortions. They're mostly doing STD tests and birth control and such other things. But they do some abortions. You have to stand at least a certain distance from the clinic. Colorado has an 8-foot floating buffer zone, and the Supreme Court 14 years ago upheld that to protect patients and staff and kind of prevent harassment from happening. Now, in Massachusetts, there is a 35-foot buffer zone from the entrance of a reproductive health care facility where abortions take place. The zone is clearly marked with a yellow line, Lewis, and the Supreme Court is going to decide whether this is constitutional or whether it is a violation of people's right to really have unfettered free speech. The lead plaintiff is Eleanor McCullen. She's a member of the anti-abortion group Operation Rescue and also a part-time prison chaplain. She looks kind of like a cheery grandmother. And what she does is stand outside Planned Parenthood clinics in Boston 2 days a week for the last 13 years and counsel women against going inside, ideally, and talking to her instead to prevent abortions. Now, she says the buffer zone violates her First Amendment rights and prevents her from communicating with complete effectiveness. She says, it's America. I should be able to walk and talk gently, lovingly, anywhere with anybody. Now, Planned Parenthood in Boston says 90% of what we do is primary care, contraception, cancer screening, and gynecological services, not abortions. 10% of what we do is abortions, but we still have these people outside all the time, and we do have a need for security. By the way, 2 personnel at that clinic were killed by a gunman in 1994 who also wounded 5 others. Lewis, when I think about this idea of buffer zones, if you were going to eliminate the 35-foot buffer zone outside of these clinics, you have to eliminate the 150-foot buffer zone around polling places beyond which people holding campaign literature have to stand. You have to stay away from the buffer zone around the Supreme Court for people holding signs trying to get their message heard or seen regarding what is being discussed inside. I think that it would be improper to discriminate specifically when it comes to a buffer zone around an abortion clinic and not so many other places in this country.
Right. And you can even get into the details of land ownership and, well, where does your jurisdiction end if you own this building and things like that. But it seems to me that if these protesters are still in plain sight, 35 feet is not much at all. I don't think there's much harm being done.
This is the hypocrisy of the extreme radical religious right. They think that God specifically, their God, and no other gods from other so-called fake religions would be able to do this. Their God has given them the right to force their beliefs on everyone else in this country, and even the slightest attempts to prevent them from doing so in exactly the way they've determined they need to is labeled as some kind of an affront to their ability or right to practice their religion, freedom of religion. Even saying happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas to some members of the radical right, Lewis, is considered some kind of an act of war. And actually, the term war is being used all the time when something like happy holidays is said. What a double standard.
Yeah, the war on Christmas, David. I mean, I'm not going to advocate for a war on religion, but religion is certainly not helping anything.